This is Dennis Donahue from Palma's class of 1972, and I have a fellow alumnus, Father Ken Lavaroni, class of 69, joining us to talk about Palma's Lenten Mass series, and we're going to spend some time with Father Ken in just a few moments. And we also have Adam Stevens from the theology department, who also moonlights as the sacristan. And then, Adam, why don't you introduce your young Palma Charge, who is from the class of 2026.
All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. I have here wonderful young man. This is Tristan Turney. He is a freshman, class of 2026. So freshman here at Palma. Uh, Tristan's a great kid. I had him last year as an eighth grader. One of my better students that I've had. A joy to teach. He helps out at masses here at Palma quite often, reading and just being present. And another fun fact, Tristan just made his first communion right before Christmas last year, just in 2022, so just a few months ago. So definitely just a wonderful shining example of a young Palma student, of a young chieftain. So
And Tristan, you're already to jump in with the big questions of what are you giving up for Lent?
of course, yeah, it's
All right. You don't have to tell us just yet. You may change your mind after you spend some time with Father Ken. He may call us all to higher ground. So
yeah.
anyway, well, good. Well, as I said as we began, we wanted to talk about the Palma Lenten Mass series. It's been a pretty, in my view, special series of masses we've done for nearly 20 years now. Adam, talk a little bit about what what the plan is for this year. As always, we have our five masses, and I know Bishop Garcia is going to kick things off. But talk a little bit about the series and some of our guests and what we have to look forward to every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, well, we're really looking forward to it. Yeah, obviously, last year we brought it back. Obviously, COVID knocked us out of commission for a couple of years. So we're happy to bring it back, kind of on a small scale last year with local priests. But this year we're ramping it up. We have priests that local, priests from out of town. As you mentioned, Dennis, this week we get kicked off March 1st tomorrow. All masses are at 7 p.m. at the Edmund Rice Chapel here at the campus of Palma. And we have Bishop Danny Garcia, the Bishop of the Diocese of Monterey, coming to visit us tomorrow. And then following, we have five more after that, all the way through Wednesday of Holy Week. So we have a local priest, again, working retired as it might be. Father Ron Shirley, longtime friend of Palma, is coming to town next week. From Monterey, schlepping it up 68 to come visit us. A longtime priest, longtime friend of Palma. But we have some out of town priests too, and we're happy to welcome Father Gil Ramirez from down in Los Angeles coming up. He'll be there March 15th. Um, he's done work with UCLA students as well. And then we'll have Father Ken, aforementioned, coming in week 4. We're happy to always welcome an alumni back. And then a real out-of-towner, we're bringing in Father Nate Willis, who is the chaplain of the University of Notre Dame football team. And we're happy to have him come to town. He'll be doing our fifth Lenten Mass. That's the 29th of March. And then our final one, Wednesday of Holy Week, will be our Palma chaplain currently, and well, soon to be leaving, unfortunately, but our current Palma chaplain, Father Tyler Harris, from just down the road in Spreckles, St. Joseph's and Spreckles, will be coming to celebrate our final Latin Mass with us. So we're really excited. We have different musical talents coming in locally to help us out, for local schools and from the parishes around our area. And each of our classes take ownership of these masses. So we have 6 masses. For the first 5, we have the 4 high school classes here, the junior high, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade here, our Palma Junior High, take ownership and sponsorship of one. And then our final mass is sponsored by our service organization here on campus, the Blessed Edmund Rice Society, and they'll be doing that last one. So we really have student ownership, sponsorship of these liturgies, from reading to altar serving to liturgy planning. Yeah, and I work with many of those students, and excited to do that. But it's a really great tradition, trying to get the students, the faculty, and the local community involved. We're really excited to really ramp it up, ramp it up again as we're coming out of COVID. So very excited, and encourage alumni and current families and alumni and local Palma
Yeah,
community.
no, that extended Palma community. Let's see if we can get them out on a Wednesday night. And by the way, before we jump in with Father Ken, Father Ramirez happens to be an Alisal Trojan, so that's kind of an interesting twist. Even though he's, now we've kind of got him pegged as a Bruin. He actually has some Salinas roots too. Our guest today actually comes from all the way from San Juan Batista. So he's not necessarily a Salinas guy like Father Ramirez. So and I'm pleased to welcome. Remember, it's YouTube; they can see the hand motion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm pleased to welcome Father Ken Lavaroni, as I said earlier, from the class of 1969. Father, thank you for joining us. The last time you and I visited, I I remember saying I thought you retired and immediately accused you of not being so good at it. As you said, I've already spent 3.5 hours Zooming today and teaching. So, I'd kind of like to start with, before we talk about Lent and the spiritual and maybe the more serious side of all that. You certainly have had a very interesting priesthood ministry, and frankly, given everything you've done, I think it's pretty fair to say there's even almost the elements of a actual career in all of that, above and beyond your ministerial work. So I know people will be pleased to see you again, but they may not have known everything you're up to. So let's just start with, you graduated in '69, and tell us a little bit about your journey to active retirement.
The long many years. Yes, I was born and raised in San Juan Bautista. As many know, I graduated from Palma in '69. Went away to college and eventually went into the college seminary after 3 years of college. Had to do a couple of years there because I was shy on Latin and shy on philosophy. So I picked up those courses. Then I entered St. Patrick's Seminary. At that time, I was studying for the Diocese of Monterey, and I was ordained for the Diocese of Monterey in 1979, a priest at the old mission San Juan Bautista, where my family, actually, my sixth great-grandfather oversaw the building of that mission in 1803. So we have long roots there and at the mission in my family. So I was with the diocese, as many of you know, and that was my... when I was first ordained, my connection with Palma continued even after ordination. The brothers and I many of them kind of kept in contact. I was involved in a few things at Palma as a priest. I taught, when I was first ordained, I taught life ethics, team taught with a lay teacher. I can't think of his name right. Prescott, I think was his last name. And then Brother Segbich and I taught also a life ethics course to juniors. It was a great class. I'll never forget saying, we talked about things like in vitro fertilization and organ transplants and all these kind of things, which were absolutely almost unheard of at that time. And I said, you wait and see. In your lifetime, you're going to have to consider these questions, these moral questions. And boy, I didn't know what I was saying to them at that point, because all those things are real common things in our world today. But anyway, I served as a priest at Sacred Heart, started out there in Salinas, spent some time as working in the Chancery office as the judicial vicar and the bishop's office, vocation director, pastor in a couple of places, Hollister and in Santa Cruz for several years, and Aptos for several years. And then when I went on a sabbatical after about 12 years of ordination, sabbaticals are dangerous because you have a lot of time to stop and slow down and to think and to pray. And that's when the wheels started turning, that maybe I look at the Franciscans, because when I was growing up, I was highly influenced by the Franciscans at St. Francis Retreat in San Juan, because I grew up around there. And the Franciscan sisters in San Juan had me in catechism as a kid. So I had that Franciscan influence, not directly pushed into my head, but the example of it was very important. And I kind of absorbed that by osmosis, I think. So I eventually was ordained for Monterey, as I said, and served in these different capacities. And then on the sabbatical, I thought, do I want to continue doing this? Do I want to be limited in ministry as a parish priest? Might there be other opportunities? So that began my journey to the Franciscans. So 25 years ago, after 18 years with the Diocese of Monterey, I joined the Franciscans, and I've had wonderful opportunities and done a lot of different things, and had as a Franciscan, I've been a pastor a couple times in Sacramento with the same parish. I've served on our provincial council. I was the vicar provincial, which is like the next in line to the provincial, or next in line comparable to the bishop for the Franciscans out here in the West. And I'm professor of canon law at the Franciscan School of Theology. That's what I was teaching today. They are now in San Diego, so sometimes I go down there, and today I did it on Zoom, which we did during COVID. And a year or so ago, I requested to be able to go into active retirement, and the provincial said that, yeah, that you're old enough to do that. And so I moved to Malibu, to our retreat house here, and I figured, well, at least there I could be retired. Well, it didn't turn out that way. So I'm retired. I'm not in charge of anything. That's what I call retirement in my world. I'm not in charge, which is a great blessing. And so I continue to work as a canon lawyer for the Diocese of Monterey. I'm their judge. I'm the guy that writes the decrees of nullity in marriages. I'm doing a great deal of work with the Franciscans in the United States, in canon law areas, and as well as Poor Clare Sisters throughout the United States. And for the last 3 or 4 months, I serve anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week as a Catholic chaplain at the LA County USC Hospital in downtown LA, which is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I think I found a niche there. So that's kind of brings me up to where I am now. I'm loafing at the beach in Malibu.
Well, somebody certainly has to minister to the community, the Malibu community, and
yes, that's right.
If it has to be you,
well, I don't minister to them too much. I do better over in the LA County Hospital with the people off the street.
There you go. There you go.
So that's what brings where I am today, and it's a pleasure to be able to be asked and able to find the time to come up to Salinas for the liturgy in March. It's always great to see old friends.
Yep. No, and they'll look forward to seeing you. Now, quick question for you. You mentioned canon law.
Yeah.
Do you sneak a law degree in the middle of all that? How does that work?
Yeah. After I joined the Franciscans, I was asked, what would you like to do? Well, I've been doing canon law work for 18 years, but without a degree. So I said, I'm beginning to realize what I don't know. I know a little bit. So I fortunately went to Rome, and I studied canon law for 2 years in Rome at the University of St. Thomas, which is run by the Dominicans. They call it the Angelicum, which was a great time. Rome's a great city to live in. It's nice to visit, but it's even better to live there. And I was able to travel all over Italy during that time. And a wonderful opportunity I had. And I learned a lot of canon law, and some people that get the degree, they use it for a couple of years, but I've been out of there since 2004. So that's 18, 19 years I've been out of there. I'm still going strong with it. And so I feel it's a ministry in itself, and it's helping people in different ways that sometimes they feel they're hopeless. There's no hope at all. Well, my role is to let them know there is some hope, and let's figure out how to bring that hope alive.
So Tristan, see what happens when you go to Palma? Quick question before we jump in. Well, first of all, Adam and Tristan, any questions for you before we keep moving along, because we're gonna get into Lent.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, Father Ken, I did have a question.
Sure.
How would you say your experience or your time at Palma influenced your decisions when you were becoming a priest, or throughout that journey?
Well, I don't think it had a absolutely direct impact. Okay. I mean, I didn't become a brother. Okay. So I didn't go in that direction, but I don't know. Are there any brothers left at Palma now?
Uh,
Start
Brother
somewhere.
Samp's back.
Okay. Oh, is he? Great. Yeah, I knew him when he first came there,
Yeah.
years and years and years ago. But I wouldn't say directly. I think what was important to me is that the um, continued emphasis on a sense of spirituality and belonging. In those days, it was great because we were a much smaller school. We had like 300 students, or you were there in junior high at the same time, Dennis. So it was 300 or 400 students in the whole school, and many of them, most, I would say probably most, were Catholic at that time, which is not good or bad. It just was, and so um, there was a sense of who we were and what we were about. We were more of a community type thing. Not that everybody was all perfect and everything, but there was a homogeneity there, that because of the smallness, and Salinas was small then too. And I came from San Juan, and they came from Gilroy and Gonzales and Soledad, but there was something that connected all of us. And I think I saw, the church was portrayed as a positive thing to me, and probably to you, Dennis, when you were there. It was something that was worthwhile, and the experience of liturgy and the community priests and things that came along, they kind of encouraged that. They didn't they didn't turn us off. Maybe later on, people made choices, but while we were in school, I think we had a respect for the brothers. Because if you didn't, look out. And just for spirituality, in a sense, even though I wouldn't say that spirituality was really strong, it was more implicit. It wasn't that explicit, at least as I remember. But I would say, would I be in the same place if I'd gone to Hollister High School or someplace else? I don't know. It just happened to be where I was, and I always wanted to go to Palma. So even when I was in grade school in San Juan.
Adam, does that sound like Palma today a little bit?
To a degree. Yeah, we're a little bit bigger. We're almost 500 students now when you combine our junior high and our high school. Obviously, there are a lot more, with the times have changed, right? There's a lot more non-Catholics here. I'd say we're probably 55, 45.
Sure.
And I would sense amongst a number of our students, there's a thirst to know, because we live in a much increasingly secular world, right? The religion, the faith, spirituality is not implicit anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So it's something that needs to be presented. And that's a challenge myself and my colleagues, we have to address, we have to face, and we try to want to present the faith as, trying to present the faith as something attractive, as something that, is going to benefit you in life. It's not just the 4 years you take a theology class with me or one of my colleagues, or the masses you go to when it's a holy day of obligation here at school, right? That it's something you can take with you, and it's a blessing to work to try to spread the gospel in that way. But it's also has its, with modern times, it has its difficulties certainly as well. But it's a challenge that we are willing to embrace in this world.
So, Father Ken, taking that, or go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to say to kind of to add to that is that my impression of the spiritual dimension of Palma High School has changed drastically in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe 20 years. That I don't know if it's been quite that long. But the fact that there's campus ministry there, that there's organized programs that get you out of the classroom, out of the head, into the heart. That's something new at Palma. That was never, when I was there, that was never, I don't know if you recall that at all, Dennis, during your time, but that was never, it was more of an academic or a kind of a ritual thing we did. It didn't touch us personally that much. At least that's my recollection. There weren't activities to engage in, which there is today, that was started 10, 15 years ago, which I think really developed, the spirituality, especially of Edmund Rice. I mean, we'd barely heard of Edmund Rice before when I was in school. Kind of in the back of my mind, I remember hearing something about him, but there was never any focus on what his spirituality is about, or what the brothers' spirituality was about, which is important. You have a brand. I think you have to use that brand. You have to use what this is all about. and convey that brand, that message of the founder to the faculty and to the students. And I think that's of essence to all Catholic schools, not just Palma. And I see that happening in the last few years to Palma.
Well, and I appreciate that comment, and then kind of picking up on what both of you just said. Uh, I've always viewed the Lenten Mass series as important because it's a very overt statement
Exactly.
of our value proposition, regardless, respecting all faiths, but
Yeah.
but it does uh, speak to the Palma difference,
Yes.
and I certainly would echo what you said in terms of kind of the evolution of Palma. So even though the percentages change, I think the values, connecting head to heart, not a bad evolution.
No, no,
And
no.
No.
And I think what I see at the masses that I've been part of over the, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so, is that, or maybe more, I don't really know how long I've been coming back for that. But you see, I see a lot of the alumni there, people that I knew in school, maybe a year ahead, a few years ahead of me, a few years behind me, people that maybe just graduated, mixing and celebrating with the current students as the classes or the different entities share in the celebration. And that's a great sign, I think, for everyone. But the fact that the people that have left there and still continue to support the school is a great sign. I think that in some way or another, that school touched those people that are older than I am, as well as maybe a little bit younger, but that they're still coming back. They're still coming back.
yeah, no, I
To celebrate Eucharist, to be at Eucharist. So.
Tristan, one of the things I would say, it's interesting when you go to Palma and you're a student, you tend to be, you think, and you can correct me, you tend to think of Palma as it's the students, as opposed to the broader community. Is that a fair comment, or have you already picked up it's a much bigger family?
Yeah, it's a fair comment. I'd say you definitely think, oh, when I go to Palma, this is the academic place where I'm going to learn. You don't necessarily think of the community of Palma as much. But yeah,
Well, we're giving you a head start as a freshman. We're letting you in on that reality. So something to look forward to. You think 2026 comes and see you in the rearview mirror. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
So, and you'll appreciate that.
Yeah.
Father Ken, let's jump in. Let
Sure.
the real matter at hand. Let's talk a little bit about Lent. Obviously, we're having Mass and observing the season with that celebration. But talk a little bit about Lent, how you approach it and prepare for it, and and on one hand, we're very familiar with it, but maybe from year to year, particularly you as a priest, you're thinking about different things to communicate to those you are saying Mass to, ministering to, and working with. So get us ready for Lent.
Well, I think Lent has a bad rap. Lent, oh my God, it's Lent again. Now, what do I have to give up? What am I going to give up this year? And if you're lucky, you might give it up, the whole Lent. Okay, that's the reality. Let's just face it. But I think Lent is more than giving up. Lent is a time that the church asks us to stop. And if your life, and I'm sure it is, especially yours, Dennis, and maybe even Tristan's and Adam's, our minds are just going like this. At least mine is all the time. There's always something. And it's just full of everything. And I don't even want to say what's in there, but you know what I mean. All right. So there's just a lot of stuff going on in there. And so the church, I think, calls us to say, would you just stop for a minute? And people, at least I hear it in confessions, people, oh, I'm going to say more prayers. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I'm going to give up this and give up that. And, I tend to tell people, I think God says to us, would you just stop and shut up? I'm getting tired of listening to you. Why don't you listen to me for a bit? Just stop, including all this stuff that's going on up here. And what might you hear if you stop and listen to me? And if we, the readings in the prophet Isaiah in these first days of Lent are very important to us. And I think it sets the tone for the rest of Lent. It's like, what is it? It's not so much that we give something up, But maybe it's that we let something go that gets in the way of something more important in our lives. Isaiah the prophet says, it's not that you give up, being angry or being mean or giving up candy or cigarettes or liquor or whatever it is, talking back to your mom or dad, or no, but it's how do I open my heart to the presence of God in those around me, especially the poor and the marginalized people. How do I see that God is present in the person that I can't stand, and to embrace that person, at least in your heart. So in one sense, I think Lent is a time to break open your heart. Now, sometimes you got to have a broken heart before anything can get better. Huh? But maybe it's a time that we break open our own hearts and say, God, I want to let all this stuff that's keeping me from you, from keeping me from growing in my appreciation of not only who I am, but who my neighbors are, and who you are, God, and the goodness and all that you've given me. Open that up and let all that stuff that really fills up my heart, that is really not worth a whole lot, that is here today and gone tomorrow, with something, fill it up with a great sense of awareness and a great sense of gratitude and a great sense of joy, because that's what God's about. And when I open my eyes and I look at someone, do I see God's face there? And if I see God's face, I have to treat that person in a little different way. Last Thursday, I was working at the hospital as a chaplain. It was at the county hospital in LA. In LA, it was pouring down rain, and it was wet, and it was windy and really cold. And in bed 5 there was this poor old guy that they brought in on the street, laying on the street in the midst of the wind and the rain and the cold. And they brought him in, fortunately, and he was almost hypothermic. He was just about out of it, dead, because it was so cold. And they brought him in there, and they put these warm blankets and pads to try to get his body temperature up. And the nurse said to me, don't get too close to him. So I looked down on the sheet, and it was covered with bugs. He was covered with bugs. I had to stop, and I had to say, that is the face of Christ. And I have to acknowledge him as a creation of God and of dignity and of worthiness. I couldn't call him a bum. Couldn't call him. I had to appreciate who he was as a creation of God, of one of God's beloved children, even though he was full of bugs. Literally, you could see him crawling all over the sheets. So I think that's an analogy or an example, I think, of what Lent should do for us. Who cares if you give up cigarettes, or you give up swearing, or you give up this, or you give up that? What are you doing to increase your connection with God and what God has created in our lives? And to be grateful for that, and to see God's presence in that. That's a whole different approach, I think, to Lent.
I've heard a lot of your sermons. That's pretty good, but I expect different material on the 22nd. Because this will be broadcast before that.
This is just something the other day
this one's already in the can, Ken. You can't do this one again. But that was good.
I haven't read the readings yet, so I don't know.
Adam, Tristan, any thoughts about Lent and maybe what Father Ken had to say?
For me, I like what Father Ken had to say was poignant. When I was Tristan's age, when I was younger, it was all about give up ice cream, give up soda, give up something, right? Yeah. And for me, I found it, for me, as I've gotten older, now I'm in my 30s, is something along the lines of what Father said, trying to do something more, trying to do something more instead of giving up something. Try to do something to help increase my spiritual life. Trying to work on holiness, especially in this time here. We should always do that, right? As Catholics, we hopefully would do that at all times, but this, in a special way this time of year. And whether it's trying to increase devotions like attending stations of the cross, saying the rosary, trying to, when schedule lots to maybe go to Dorothy's Kitchen or something, like trying to do something extra. And the hope, at least as I've tried to do it in my life, is hey, you do it for these 40 days, why not do it for another 40 and another 40? And it becomes a good spiritual habit. But I also agree with Father Ken because I am totally guilty on the everything up here. Taking a minute to shut up, I guess, and Dan, shut up because I'm as guilty as anybody on that, running a million miles an hour between teaching, coaching, and just life in general. And taking time to sit down, whether it's just, whether it's during the day at home, in the chapel here, just like, just shut up. And you can't hear God. You're right. You can't have a conversation if you don't let the other party talk, right? And if you're yapping all the time and you're the one running a million miles an hour, you don't have time to listen. So Father, that's great advice. It's something I know. It's something I know I try to do, and it's something I know I need to work increasingly get better at.
And you said something, Adam, that I broke my attention. You said, what do I have to do? And that's a typical, I think, male approach, because our doing speaks about who we are and our worth oftentimes. But maybe another way to look at it is, what do I need to be? So doing and being are a little different, because being is about, what am I about? Moses said to God, who are you? What's your name? He says, I am who am. Okay. This is the reading just the last few days. I am who am. So who am I? What am I as a child of God? And what I am, what I be, is going to affect how we are and how we act, what we do. So it's a little deeper way of looking at things. Let's put it that way, of approaching things. And it's tough. It's not easy. It's tough. It's a journey.
Well, Tristan, you're almost ready to be a sophomore. Which they're often dubbed wise fools. So
yes.
Before you get to that stage,
I teach sophomores this year.
Whoops! This is in public. We better not let them know.
Yeah.
I didn't say I called them that. I said they're called that sometimes. So Tristan, what do you think about this as you're moving along your faith journey? Are you in on Lent?
Oh, definitely. I definitely agree with what Father was saying. Lent is always viewed as like, oh, I'm giving up something. It's a bummer. But I heard Father Tyler talking about this the other day, but it's about it's also about what you get and like the awareness you feel. It's
sure.
It could also be like you're listening to God, letting the other party speak, like Father Ken was saying.
Well, Father, we're gonna wrap things up. You've given us a sneak preview of the type of sermon you're going to do, and we know Tristan and Adam are going to be on hand that night. Kind of, let's just finish up with before we encourage folks to join us, because I think it's a great series, and that's a great message, and that's one of the reasons I always like going, because you do get a good message, and it kind of keeps you moving through those 40 days, because usually by the time you hit March 22nd, you're right, I'm pretty sure I've stopped giving up whatever, and even my I continue to have upside, and I'm only a week into the deal, but some just kind of some final thoughts, or even in your ministry, whether it's the hospital. I mean, that really was a story we would all do well to think about. But just as you've moved along to Lent, the various people you interact with, does Lent affect people in a good way?
I think it does. I think a lot of people are out there searching for something, and Lent is that time to maybe focus in on that search, maybe to weed out all the stuff that's not very important. And what is it that I really need how do I really need to be today for this year, this Lent? How much do I need to empty? What do I need to empty myself of? What do I need to die to in terms of my own ego, or whatever it happens to be, whatever is in my heart? What do I have to die to truly come to new life in the resurrection, to rise to a new place and rise to a new place with God.
Gentlemen, we're gonna give you two the last word. I think Father Ken has given us reason to think, hey, I want to make sure I'm at Mass on the 22nd and the ones prior. But I think it'll be terrific to have him back in the house at Palma, so to speak. But any final thoughts from you two?
Again, just we want to make this, we want to, now that we're out of, we're kind of out of the COVID thing, we really want to use this time to build community, and celebrate the Palma community, and celebrate during this holy season of Lent that we can all grow together spiritually, that we can all grow together, as one body of Christ, right? One church, one body of Christ, one Palma family in the faith in this very special holy time here. So really, we're really excited here at Palma, and we'll love you to, we're looking forward to Father Ken, of course, later in March, but these other, all the masses starting tomorrow with our bishop on through all our priests that we have. We're really excited, and yeah, I encourage our listeners, right? Make this Lent a good Lent, make this Lent a happy Lent. Don't look at it as that time of, give up something, right? Use this as an opportunity to grow in holiness, as we grow closer to Christ, as we celebrate as are the cornerstone of our faith, the Paschal mystery and the resurrection. That should be, we're building up to it. We're in a season that is building up to the greatest event in human history, right? The greatest joy of human history, right? Our salvation, right? So I would say, and as I say to my students, right, this isn't a dour time. This isn't we use ashes on Ash Wednesday, but it's not ashes, sackcloth, mourning. Don't think of that as like, look at this as a preparation, a building up to the climax of our faith, right? And our, the Paschal mystery of Christ. So, and hopefully, we hope and encourage all members of the Palma community, all members of the Salinas Valley. You have a place to every Wednesday night to try and grow in that holiness and grow in that anticipation of Christ. So we're excited and to begin this and welcome everyone.
Good message, good invitation. Tristan, you're going to be there on the 22nd and all the other masses, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Attaboy.
Good answer.
Sounds good. Well, listen, Father Ken, it'll be great to see you in person on the 22nd. Thanks for all your time. We know you've had a long day. Adam and Tristan, I know you've had a long day, so thanks for joining us. And we want to make sure the Palma community that here's the word today. Please join us for the Lenten Mass series this year, and I hope Father Ken, how do I'm not sure what the Lenten equivalent of Merry Christmas is. How do we sign off with Have a good Lent?
Happy Lent.
There you go. All right, happy Lent, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, ciao. Bye-bye.